Welcome, everyone, to the Meaningful Hearts podcast, where we discuss the everyday questions that make us or break us if we let them. With your hosts, Drew and Daniella. Take our hands and let's walk this journey together.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Meaningful Hearts podcast. Last episode, I was riding solo. Today, we have Drew back. Welcome back, babe. How you doing?
I'm good. It's great to be back after a one-episode hiatus.
Glad to have you back.
Back in the building.
I think I said that already, honestly, but it's okay.
She said it twice.
I did.
It's so good, you got to say it twice.
So on today's episode, we thought that it would actually be a good idea to talk about what Drew has been experiencing in his life. We go through transitions and adjustments in our lives sometimes, I would say a lot of the time. And sometimes those transitions are really hard. Sometimes they're really easy. But we thought it was a good idea to share some personal experiences personal experience, because it's just his, about what it's been like. You know, I think I said it in the last episode, I might have mentioned, you know, if you wanted to talk about it, that you would. And I think here we are talking about it. So, Drew, how can we start? Do you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing, or would you like me to ask questions right from the start?
You can ask me questions right from the start. I'm ready to fire away, and then we'll go from there. We'll segue into some things. Sometimes questions really get the conversation going. Sure.
So, did we mention this already? I actually don't know, but Drew got a new job. I might have mentioned it in the last episode, but
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. But if I didn't, then here I go. And if I did, I apologize for being redundant. Can't remember everything that I say all the time. But Drew got a new job. And my first question is, what brought about your decision to start looking for new jobs?
Well, for me, a big thing is growth and development. I'm very much in the sales space. I don't want to get too detailed or give company information out. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm really just going to talk about like how I develop, right? So I've been in the sales industry for about 20 years or so, and I'm always looking to grow. I'm looking for opportunities to expand and be able to affect change and be able to impact an industry that I'm in. And where I was working at the time was, to a certain extent, there was a lot of potential. I was looking to move into another area of the company, and things didn't really move in that direction. It was kind of everything just completely changed. Their vision and where they wanted to go with everything changed. And it pretty much like stunted my growth and my ability to expand in ways that I wanted to. And with that being said, I realized that my time there was pretty much limited, not because I didn't have a position there or that I didn't like what I was doing there, but I knew that my time is valuable and I know that I can do a lot more somewhere else. And I started to look, and I was having a conversation with one of my friends, and he mentioned what he did in the space that he's in and how I can apply my abilities, my knowledge of the industry that I'm currently in to the new industry that I would be going into. And it would be honestly very lucrative financially, but I'd be able to help people in ways that I was never really able to do before. And I was like, wow, I could build something huge out of this, not something temporarily, not just moving a small commodity, but something that is going to affect change in somebody else's life and business. And the rest is pretty much history. I applied. Brings me to where we currently are in my new role. You're on mute, I think.
Yeah, I was.
And she's like, da, da. It looks like she's singing a song. Yeah. It's okay. We had some technical difficulties, but we're back.
Yeah, I apologize.
Okay.
I forgot what I was going to say actually. Oh, I remember. So, based on what I was hearing from you, it sounds like the reason why you started to look for a new job is because you felt you had hit the ceiling at your previous, is it previous job or with your previous employers? I think that
Those are all correct.
someone.
I guess in a sense, it's like you could say job or career. I think job is just like a place that you go, you do what you have to do, you get money, you go home. So I don't
Sure.
necessarily like to use the word job,
So we'll go with career.
career, or previous role.
Oh, that's a good one actually. Um,
Yeah.
so it sounds like you hit the ceiling and you wanted more.
Yes.
So I just wanted to kind of recap that before I
Correct.
realized that I was actually, that's what I was saying when I was on mute, by the way. So what was the process like? What was the interview process like?
The interview process um, was very redundant in the questions that they asked. So basically, there's a recruiter that always speaks to you first. They're the first line of like kind of just combing through your history and asking you questions about your vision, what you want to do, why the company that you're applying for, all that. They want to just kind of get a feel for you before they even pass you off onto the active members of the company that are looking to fill that role. So from there, after they give the thumbs up, they say, oh, I'm gonna send you over to one of the team managers to for a first time interview, and then from there it's pretty much a succession of higher ups interviewing you. But what I could say is that I was asked a lot of really not just the basic questions, because the basic questions are, yeah, well, that's great, I get that, but more detailed information about um, what exactly my vision is, what exactly I want to do, right? Because you could say those things, but they want to know more about your intention and how your intentions apply to the current role that you're applying for. And it's tricky, especially in sales, where they want to know numbers. They want to know how you can come in and do something differently than the other applicants. And it literally got down to the point of, I did about 6 interviews, but it was like with one interviewer in particular, it was like splitting hairs. It was very, 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 very like tricky, because they ask questions that not necessarily to trap you or to make you feel a certain way, but they want to see how you think, how your
Mm-hmm.
mind thinks, because in essence, you're the first customer that you're going to be dealing with the company that you work with is the people you work for, and they have to be sold on you before you can go out there and represent them. And that was tough. It was very tough.
Would you say that the interview process was the most challenging part of your transition, or was there something that was more challenging than
I,
that?
I would say that I would say leaving a company that you've worked for, you've built rapport with the people. It's always hard leaving people. It's not really the company you leave the people behind. So it's the relationships that I forged, the people that I met, and that I enjoyed spending my day to day with. That was pretty tough. Thinking about almost like, you're leaving your home almost in a sense to go somewhere else where it's new and it's not very familiar to you. That was tough. Um, the interview process, as we speak, it was one of the toughest interviews that I've ever dealt with, especially because it was the previous interview plus the previous interview before that. And so you basically repeated yourself. You introduce yourself over and over and over again, and you speak to not just managers, but you at a certain point you're speaking to the CEO of the company. So there's a lot of weight on who you're speaking with, the room that you're speaking with, the level of education and diction that you have to speak. There's a lot that's involved in that, and it was tough. Um, I love the process because I think it's very important. Just a little side note: if you're going to interview for a company that you like and you really want to work for, you have to know and understand how to interview and understand the format of how interviews work and be able to project the things that you want them to know about you in a professional light, not in a personal light. And that's something I developed. Well, I interviewed at other companies too, which also helped sharpen my sword. But
Ooh, sword.
yeah, it's literally sharpening your tools. Obviously, YouTube videos helped as well. but just answering questions about yourself. It's interesting how much you don't realize. Well, do you think you do? Well, it's interesting to realize you don't know how to speak about yourself when it comes time to do it in a way that it doesn't fall flat. So having that time to be able to talk about yourself in a sense of like maybe your history in a summarized way that's not too wordy, and it hits on all the points that you want to hit along the way. And then when you get to the point of hammering it home, they're like, wow, that's quite the journey you went on. And we're glad that all that experience led you to us. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that might be a good episode idea to expand on about interviewing and what interviewing is like. But I think it was great that you gave that little bit of insight. It is important to be knowledgeable. So we'll put a pin in that one, that side note. Maybe we'll take the pin out in the future.
It's definitely something that I've hinted on. I think we've spoke about it in the past too.
I know you and I, like in our lives, have spoken about it. I don't know if we've actually ever talked about it on our show.
No. I'm talking about just a side note, because we're always talking about ideas that we can add content and stuff like that. It's something that as a younger professional, I didn't know that it was like, I didn't realize that was the thorn in my side. I didn't realize that was the reason why I wasn't getting certain roles that I was applying for. And then learning a lot, and then looking back, you're like, damn, I didn't know. I had the skill. I just didn't know how to interview. And it's crazy how many people probably they're overqualified, but they just suck at interviews. And it's crazy to think, oh, I have to be good at an interview. Are you kidding me? But what about the job? It's like, well, you have to be able to communicate your skills and your abilities in a format that they can take and say, okay, you're the right person. Done with side note.
You literally pulled the words out of my mouth because I was just about to say that.
I know. You're like, okay, let's not get sidetracked now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, my next two questions, you may have actually kind of started to answer them, or maybe hints, or not hints, but little subtleties here and there. What are some of the things that you were really, really nervous about? And what are some of the things that you were really excited about throughout this process?
Ooh,
good question.
I was nervous about, as part of the interview processes, you enter in with confidence. It's like a chess match. It's not a chess match where they're trying to beat you, but they want to see where they have you cornered or where they have you stumped. Because they assume they think that when you come into the room that you have everything figured out, and they want to ask you that one question you don't know. So they would ask you a question like, for instance, if you were in this specific scenario, like how would you handle it? And it's probably some crazy,
like flip a table.
Yeah, like logical,
no, I'm just kidding.
Like as it pertains to the job or whatever. Or tell me about a situation that didn't go so well, and how did you handle it, and how did it affect your business?
Yeah, it's a really common question.
Because people want to talk about their wins, they don't want to talk about their losses. But it's interesting because they want to know how you talk about your losses. They want to know that you're still upbeat about it. Well, hey, I made a mistake there, and that's fine, because it was asked to me. It was like, well, just to sum it up, I made the mistake. It wasn't necessarily me, a direct doing by me, but my company. But I took the hit. It's my name, it's my face, and I was able to salvage that relationship and be able to move forward and keep it going, where I was able to eventually get their business in the future. But it took a little more nurturing in time. So it's like, oh wow, well, he doesn't give up. He doesn't just walk away once he's actually has humility. He actually has the ability to say, hey, listen, everybody makes mistakes. It happens sometimes when nobody's perfect, but I want to see how I can retain your business again. It was like, because they'll put you in scenarios like that. They always, of course.
Is that something that you were nervous about or excited about throughout the process?
Well, that was a nerve-wracking situation that I was in.
Okay,
because
I wasn't sure if you said
I was talking about them cornering you and asking you questions that you didn't necessarily.
I got too excited.
It's okay. So there were questions like that tried to get me cornered. Don't get me wrong, I was stumped. And I was like, damn, but you can't pause. You just have to go. It's almost like if you don't know something, to the extent you have to kind of like use a little bit of improv to kind of like pull it all together with your knowledge and where you're at. Because in sales, that's how it is. You might get put in a corner with a customer, and you have to be able to not bullshit yourself, but be able to speak and keep the confidence going. So that was a tough one. Exciting was talking about the roles that I was going to move into, and how success looks with their company, and how I was just modeling, and well, I was not modeling, but I was thinking in my head, wow, that could be me. I could be in that position, and this is what I'll be doing when I'm in that role. And these are the people I'm going to be able to speak with and affect their businesses. And that was exciting for me, knowing what they offer and what I could possibly be involved in. It's definitely life-changing for me. So I was very excited about that, and the people that are part of it too. Exciting. Each interaction was very exciting.
I think that was a really good point, because I know that there were some times where you didn't say this right now, but I do know from our conversations, there were times where you were nervous because you didn't want to end up saying the wrong thing or making a bad impression. But
Yes.
I think it's wonderful that you were able to reframe for yourself and get excited about the opportunity and what was going to come and who you were going to meet and the conversations that you were going to have. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah, it was a roller coaster, but it was a fun one. Anything that challenges you and you can gain from it. It's like, you go to the championship game, I want to play the game, but I also don't want to lose. And you're in your head about it. So every at bat or every chance you get to score a goal, whatever it is, or if you get scored on, it's like, damn, you're up and down. It's a roller coaster, but that's what winning, and that's what being part of a championship team is about. It's about that. It's part of the journey.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. So up until this point, we've been talking about how, or really you've been sharing your experience about how the interview process was like. I'm wondering if not if you want to, but you kind of have to, if you can share what your experience has been the past 2 weeks now that you've started the role. What has it been like now that you're actually here? After having gone through the process, after having started, can you share what the first 2 weeks of your new role has looked like for you? Other than very busy and not giving me attention. Just kidding. Okay.
She's been pretty busy herself.
For anybody listening, I promise it's a joke. Andrew and I joke like that.
Yeah, we do this thing. It's like we just take stabs at each other, but it's in a fake, toxic, funny, comedic way.
I don't actually mean that.
No, she doesn't mean it right now, but she'll mean it later when we get off now. See, we do this tit for tat thing back and forth. It's like, damn, if people that really act that way, it's cringe, but we just do it. We out cringe each other just for fun. But anyways, So the first 2 weeks in the role, besides being very busy, it's overwhelming because I'm learning a new industry, and there's fiduciary responsibilities that I will be
fiduciary.
Yeah. So the sale is tied up into my abilities to with my moral compass to do the right thing and to be attached to that sale, not just for the moment, but for years in the future. It's very much relationship oriented, but I don't want to get into too many details of what I'm doing at the moment, but maybe in the future
it's more about focusing on like what you were feeling. So Correct. You said it was a lot of work. You were overwhelmed.
Correct. So exciting about that, learning more about the company, things that, they can't expand upon in a 30-minute interview, an hour interview, but meeting people that have been with the company 30 years, been with the company for a very long time, been in the industry for about 30, 40 years, their experiences and all the things that they've encountered. And it just further like cemented that here I am, and there's a lot of awesome things I never thought about. My eyes have opened to a lot of things. So very, very stimulating mentally. And I didn't want to just, fly away. I wanted to sit where I am and just kind of take it all in, but very exciting. A little nervous, I'm not gonna lie. It is going to be very challenging. It's a huge undertaking. There's a lot There's a lot involved in this role, but I think it's a big step. So overall, I'm like emotionally up and down, like, just feeling excited, but a little nervous about certain things. And, you know, just, I think that's anybody who wants to be successful. They don't want to face plant. They want to put their best foot forward, but it's a lot, and it's exciting, but it's a little nerve wracking.
Thanks for sharing that. Now, my last question, I think, how do I put this? Not that it's the most important question, but it really is going to start to wrap everything, and why I felt it was important to start off with talking about your experience and what it was like. And the audience will see what I mean in a minute, or actually right now. So the question is, what would you say to somebody who recognizes what you had recognized about your previous role, but is feeling stuck? Somebody who's in that place of, I know I want more, but I'm essentially afraid, or they might not actually know that they're afraid. They might just focus on what's comfortable. What would you say to somebody who is in that position?
I would say that the easiest way to explain it, because we've all been there, besides that career being stuck and all that stuff, being complacent and being comfortable, right? When you wake up in the morning and it's early and you know you have to get up regardless, and you can't imagine yourself getting out of that bed because all you want is your bed and you want to sleep in it. But eventually the day starts, you get up, you get the cobwebs off of you, and then you're actually in the day. And you don't think about laying in that bed and feeling tired, but at the moment you did. It's almost like that with your whatever job or business that you're in, and you're feeling trapped. You don't know. It's almost the same thing, because if you make that move out of into the unknown and the fear, eventually that goes away, and then you can never imagine what it was like being stuck in the job that you were in or career. You only realize that you've made a change and you've gone somewhere with it. So it's like, in a sense, waking up from feeling tired and then being in the day, you can't remember at the moment. You're like, oh, I was tired, but now I'm moving about. It's the same thing. You just got to get up and go do it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think where I'm thinking is, I mean, yes, I understand the concept, but I also think that the analogy of waking up, like, people do know what's waiting for them, versus when it comes to a career change or feeling stuck. That's part of what paralyzes people, I think, is that fear of the unknown. I'm not saying that that's not the case when you are deciding whether to get out of bed or not, but it's just something that I thought about, if that made sense.
Yeah, I mean, anybody that's waiting to make a change, I mean, it's really just a matter of taking a leap of faith, right? Yeah, I have to, at some sort of way, believe in yourself and your abilities, or just think, know that you're worth more and that you can do more. And there's so much more out there that you can experience. It's just a matter of taking that first step, and it's not easy. And I've been in some really ugly places. I've been in some really great places, and I've been really down far in my life. I've had a lot of scenarios in my life happen, and at those times I thought that things couldn't get better, and I was stuck. And I kept pushing forward, and I got out of the comfort and back into the discomfort, and then it kind of dissipated, and I felt like enlightened. I felt enriched with pride of myself, and it made me propelled me forward. And here I am now, where this is at the highest point I've ever been in my career. So with that being said, it's a matter of taking that step forward. And I know it's hard. Some of you have families, children, and a lot of responsibilities, and you feel trapped and you're working 3 jobs. I understand that. But what else is there? Our time is our biggest asset that we don't get back, and we don't spend it very wisely. It's really up to you. Nobody's going to come and save you. And that's kind of what I tell myself, when I'm tired, I don't want to go to the gym, or I don't want to do something. I'm like, well, like, you have to do this, because that if you don't take the step now, you won't ever do it. And it's just going to compound, and it's going to feel worse. You just got to kind of do it. And it's one of those things, you got to take a step.
Well, thank you for that. I think that was really good um, takeaways that people can use. You know, you actually reminded me of an analogy that I have used with patients that I learned from a supervisor that I had. When it comes to decisions, this is the analogy that I use. So decisions are hard, right? Like staying at the job that you're at and you feel like you've reached the ceiling, that's a hard decision because you know that you're unhappy. But stepping out of your comfort zone and applying to places and thinking about what might happen, you might get rejected, you might not get the job right away, that's also hard too. And what I've compared it to is I hope that I don't offend anybody in this sense. It's just the analogy. So it's the difference between being fit versus being overweight. Both decisions are hard. And the reason why that is because being overweight, before you get to be overweight, it's easier to sit on the couch, or it's easier to sit on the couch and have that bag of potato chips, or it's easier to say, oh, I'll go to the gym tomorrow. I'm not really feeling it today. In the moments, those decisions seem easy. But over a long period of time, those decisions end up being actually very difficult because you are more predisposed to having a weaker immune system. You know, your clothes might not fit the way that you want it to. You might have self image issues. You know, if you're overweight, it might increase your risk, again, health issues as far as like diabetes and stuff like that, right? And so it's a hard decision. Now, when we talk about being fit, that's also hard because it does require discipline. It does require you to have a healthy diet. It does require you to sleep right. It does require you to do some research, right? Because you can't, like, there's so many different ways to work out. So both decisions are hard. The difference is that in one of them, in the long run, you actually benefit. And that's the one where you choose to be fit or you choose to have an active lifestyle. You might not benefit right away, but you do benefit in the long run. And I think that adding to what Drew was saying about telling yourself that you're worth more, that, or asking yourself the question of, well, what else is there? You know, what more can I do? And really learning to be comfortable with the idea of being uncomfortable. That was the three main things that I took away from what you were saying. And then keeping this in mind now, what I'm saying about how hard decisions are in life. It's not supposed to be easy. If it is, wonderful for you. It worked out. Like if you go and you apply to the first job and you get that first job and you love it, wonderful, super excited for you. But the chances of that actually happening are not as probable as you going on several different interviews. And that's essentially what this episode turned into, is focusing on what are you going to do like for your life that's better, because I can probably say with confidence that anybody who ever stepped out of the comfort zone doesn't look back and say, man, I wish I had stayed in my comfort zone. Any success story that we've ever heard, anybody that's ever healed from any trauma or pain, are usually glad that they stepped out of their comfort zone, just like Drew has stepped out of his comfort zone. I know I was there. I mean, I saw him through the process. And I think my hope for this episode and having asked Drew these questions is that if you're listening, that you take away the idea that you are worth more. If you're unhappy where you are, now you may be stuck, like Drew was saying, you may have obligations, you may have responsibilities, but at the same time, can you really enjoy, I guess, like, can you enjoy the results if you burn yourself out beforehand? Like if you stay at the job that you're stuck or the career that where you feel stuck, are you really living or are you just surviving? And those were my takeaways. I like to think that I made sense because Drew was nodding his head. But Drew, if you want to add anything else before we conclude our episode, I'd love to hear it.
I'll just leave it with this. Think of the value of the person that you are now and the value of the person that you could be. And those two people will contribute to your families, your friends, everyone. You want to be the better of the two. It ultimately affects everyone else in a good way and internally as well. And that's where I'll leave it.
Cool. Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing all of that. I know that was a lot of questions. We thank you all for listening. And this is what Drew says. We'll catch you on the next one.